Moo. Moo. I love you! Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, today it is time to talk about something near and dear to my heart. My favorite monster. Anyone who's been around here long enough knows of my unrivaled love for Duramboros, and I've talked about him at different points in the past, but I've never really gone in depth on my love for him. So today it's time for my proper love letter to Duramboros, the best monster in all of Monster Hunter. I'll go over his design, his ecology, his fight, and any changes I would like to see happen whenever he eventually does make his way to the newer generation of Monster Hunter games, because he will come.
Guess what? I got a fever. And the only prescription is more cow.
Visually speaking, he instantly makes me want to gush, but the deeper you get, the cooler he really is. On first glance, it's sort of hard to make head or tails of what exactly he is. His face sort of looking like a bull, but without any semblance of a nose or snout, I guess. The humps on his back, the chonky legs and tail, but it's all a part of what makes him work so perfectly. As for the nose thing, I don't really have an answer as to why, but I can definitely say I love the way his face looks. So determined, yet so tranquil, and surrounded by these beautifully shaped and molded horns that he uses both for protection and as a weapon. And then his humps, his lovely monster humps are like tiny mountains on his back that serve so many purposes. Not only storage of nutrients and fat, but more importantly, a counterbalance. Think about it for a moment. Look at him and think about his most prominent attacks, spinning.
I'll try spinning, that's a good trick.
His front side is perfectly weighted to balance out the momentum of his swinging tail when he stands on his two chonky middle legs. This is only evened out because these humps exist in the first place. His underside is furry for warmth, because of course it is, it just makes him look even better. He's got the classic tiny brute wyvern arms and chunky legs, though for him the arms get these shoulder pad-like things and the legs are much shorter than normal, once again for the sake of his balance while spinning. He really is built in a very specific way, and I love it. Then we get to the tail.
Oh my God, Becky, look at her butt.
The thickest, most heavily armored tail you could possibly ask for, and it ends in what can only be described as an aerodynamic hammer. There are literally hard, cutting sections on it to make it easier to swing through the air than it would be if it was just spherical. This is one of those little biological things that makes a creature feel so much more real to me, because this is exactly how something would adapt, you know, if it decided that spinning was its greatest weapon. I fucking love Duramboros. These little protrusions, or whatever you want to call them, are perfectly placed around the tail so that the actual parts of it that he attacks with are flat, are round, are perfectly hammer-like, but they still work perfectly for reducing the air resistance against him spinning. It's a brilliant little detail that I just can't get over. And now the ecology, oh, fuck, this is what really does it for me. I love the way that he looks. I love the way that he fights, but this right here, this is when he really gets my blood flowing, so listen up.
Bitch, don't tell me what to do!
First up, he eats trees. Literally, trees. He uses his spinning and his massive tail to knock down trees, and then he eats them. This is part of the reason a portion of his tail is flat, as that is meant for making contact with trees. And according to the lore, if you find a fallen tree out there in the world, chances are pretty high that was actually caused by a Duramboros. It's just part of their nature. I love the idea of adapting to eat trees. It is such a peaceful way to live, not even disrupting small life really too much, and as long as he doesn't fully deforest an area, it doesn't really hugely negatively affect the environment or anyone. On his back, the green stuff is meant to represent both moss and mushrooms, which have two main benefits. Firstly, and I absolutely love this, as a shock absorber for older Duramboros. All that spinning and flying is great and fun, but when you weigh as much as a Duramboros does, the landing is the part that's the most dangerous for you. So, covered in moss and mushrooms, he softens the blow just enough to help himself. That's so cool. Then, secondarily, they are a backup food source. You heard me right. He uses his skin for snack storage.
God,
I wish I could be like that. I wish I could do those kind of things.
But really, it is a backup food source because, of course, as I already mentioned, his humps themselves are storage for fat and nutrients, though said hump storage is generally saved for the winter, as Duramboros is a hibernating creature. I love the idea of hibernation. I wish I could just sleep through the winter. He digs underground and sleeps out the winter, living off of the nutrients within his humps. If he gets close to the winter without having enough storage build up, then, well, that's when you start to see Duramboros get a little funky, and that's generally where the quests that we have for hunting them come from. Because when time gets low, Duramboros gets reckless, and he doesn't just eat trees, get this, he walks into the villages and starts eating people's wooden huts. He literally starts eating their houses.
Wow, a house made of gingerbread.
The upper side of him, the main shell bit, is ridiculously hard to the point that most things can't actually hurt him straight on, generally requiring either elements or statuses to genuinely trouble him, though some creatures can still manage to pierce his hide. In my mind, a male Duramboros is like a wandering monk who forgot his code. He's all about peace and tranquility and supporting the ecosystem and protecting life, until something walks up to him and looks at him the wrong way. He is territorial as hell, and he will fight you if you get too close to him, so he's best admired from afar. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when a mommy Duramboros and a daddy Duramboros love each other very much, what happens? Well, for the most part, male Duramboros wander the world carving their own path in life, and female Duramboros stay in a herd with the younglings to protect each other, meaning aside from unique circumstances, the majority of Duramboros that we hunt are the males. Once a male and a female mate, the female returns to the herd, constructs her nest, and lays an egg, because everything in Monster Hunter functions biologically like a bird for some reason, even the giant cow monster.
Wait a minute.
But I also really love that, honestly. It just adds to the character of this creature to picture one making a fucking nest and roosting on an egg. I'm just saying, is fantastic. And don't get me started on the whole female Duramboros and baby Duramboros in a herd. I want nothing more than to see a cutscene in this game of a herd of Duramboros. That would make me so happy. As for combat, he's simply one of my favorites to watch fight me. Meaning that when I fight him, I feel less like I'm actually fighting him and more like I'm just running on autopilot while watching him. I can't focus on the fighting because I'm so just absolutely mesmerized by everything he does. Every movement is calculatedly silly, really leaning into how much of a bumbling giant he is, but in a way that is super graceful. He is massive and ridiculous, and he does things that in theory are entirely unpredictable and inexplicable, even to him. Yet somehow it feels like he is always in control. He has tinier attacks like bites and stomps, head charges with his horns and hip checks, but for the most part, his main attacks all involve his beautiful, voluptuous tail, through either slams or spins, or literally using the momentum of his tail to fling himself into the air in order to try to, well, squish you. He is literally using his sheer size as a weapon in one of the most interesting ways that I've ever seen done. Not in Monster Hunter, not in video games, just in general. Duramboros is one of the most interesting uses of size as a pure weapon ever to me, as far as I'm concerned, which is a perfect example of a creature adapting to use its natural strengths, no matter how unconventional they may be.
Yeah, so life gives you lemons, you just gotta eat them, rinds and all.
And during this entire fight, no matter what is happening, he always just looks so damn peaceful. Always a smile on his face. The biggest reaction he has, seemingly, is to his own landing when he goes aerial, and even that just looks like a slight inconvenience to him at most. And as far as bringing him to the new world, I think he definitely has a spot in whatever the next big Monster Hunter game is. Clearly, Capcom wants to bring back all of the oldies at some point or another in the new engine and new systems, and I think Duramboros is definitely on that list, even if he isn't quite at the top of that list for people who aren't, well, me. But if that happened, honestly, most of the changes I could see happening to him aren't even actually to his fight. For the most part, I want to see things like him grazing, feeding on trees naturally, and idle animations in the environment rather than just when exhausted during a fight. Or maybe a small monster gets too close to him and he gets super aggressive for a moment and the small monster runs away. Instead of making him have a forced animation interaction where he eats it, just one where he intimidates it. I think that'd be really cool. And I can't even pretend that I'm not excited by the concept of a high-resolution Duramboros that you can properly see the mushrooms on. That would be awesome. But my main thing is that to put him in the game, I think you need to have a properly forested zone, an area built for him. Sort of like the first couple areas of the Hoarfrost Reach, because in the new world, the one thing that you could 100% logically say is definite is that he will actively knock over real trees in the environment in the zone during his fight. He did it in the old world a little bit, but with the technology in the new world engine, you could make him, like, actually totally deforest a zone in one strike if you really wanted to.
Tree.
And while I consider this unlikely, maybe you'd have some interesting bond attack level moves with Bonboro when he's around. I mean, he knocks the trees down, Bonboro picks them up. It sort of makes sense, right? For the most part, though, I think Duramboros is one of the most portable monsters there is as far as coming to the new world. The only real things that you would have to change with his moveset is making the individual animations more fluid and connected, but otherwise, he sort of just works in his current iteration really well. And personally, I would be ecstatic to hear that Duramboros is being put into the new world, even as a carbon copy of his old world self. Even the visuals being the same as the old world, just literally pasted into the new world. Just for the fact that I would be able to fight him again in a new environment. I would love that. Needless to say, Duramboros is my favorite monster, and not just by a little bit either, but by a massive, sizable chunk. Just like him. He is a massive, peaceful, lumbering giant with extremely graceful yet insane attacks. His size is never really a negative for him per se, and he is willing to risk being vulnerable for a moment to look flashy as hell. He is my spirit animal. He is my idol, and I would give up a lot of things in order to have him fully functional as a hunt in the new world. I love him to bits. Alright everyone, I've been Cotton Dinosaur, and this has been, finally, my proper talk about why I love Duramboros, and why he is my favorite monster of all time. How do you feel about Duramboros? Has anything I brought up today changed your opinion of him at all? Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. This is the brand new outro to tell you all the things that you do that we love, so let's start with something simple and say, oh, we love your eyes. When they're watching us play video games, when we make a bunch of jokes that are kinda lame, or when they gaze upon our failures as we try to kill the monsters or important news about the kingdom Animalia. Rage, Cotton, and Hollow are all here, talking about the things you want to hear, so if you want to be the first to hear, like and subscribe and the bell and we'll cheer. Some of you are patrons even though we are all the noobs and you're the pros. There's nothing we can do to thank you. No, really, there's nothing we could possibly do. Goodbye.